depending on how far along you are in your professional life, everything that you've learned so far from age 4, you have to apply them to run your company. It's personal skills, it's social skills, it's interpersonal skills, it's professional skills, communication skills, it's analytical skills, it's the hard skills, it's the soft skills, you name it, everything you have to put into it. It's like the capstone of your life. And I think it's the best college you can ever go to.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
One of the reasons I do my show is because I want to help founders and people that like to invest in founders. I'm trying to create a community that is the ideal community for what I needed 10, 15 years ago. As a young founder, it is hard to find the right mentors and money. And so what I've put together with Startups with Stu is a lot of great content that will help you. And for free, you can always come and listen to the Startups with Stu podcast. I hope you know that. I want to invite those that are listening, whether you be an angel investor, a VC, a private equity guy, whether you are a founder that's bootstrapping or a founder that's raising money, or a founder or a small business owner that's already kind of like figured some things out, but it's kind of stuck in a rut. I want to invite you to my Startups with Stu retreats. These are paid events. You have to apply to attend. Not everyone gets in, but they are a blast. First and foremost, we have fun. And second, they are game changer for your business. They are worth the investment to attend. Go to startupswithstu.com/retreats, or just go to startupswithstu.com and find the retreats tab and learn more. Apply and see if we can get you into the next retreat. We have one coming up August 20th through the 22nd, and another one coming up September 8th through the 10th. So if you're into the outdoors, especially this is for you. We're in Island Park, Idaho. It's right by Yellowstone National Park. You spend some extra days, go to Jackson, take a break from the day-to-day grind. In the book Walk Away Wealthy, Mark Tepper says that every founder should be taking 2 weeks off, stepping away from the business so they can see where they need to go work on the business so that they don't have to be in it all the time. Come and attend. Look forward to seeing you there. So if you haven't yet, go to startupswithstu.com, find the retreats tab, go learn more, and apply. You got 2 opportunities. Come and join us.
By the way, we're going to talk about my hair for a second. So in 2025, I have decided to name this the year of the Stu-pay. I am growing out the sides of my hair right now because in a week or two, I'm going to test a toupee and see if I like it. I got to own it because the hair is so gone that if someone saw me with hair again now, they'd be like, whoa, what happened? That's what happened. I'm going to give it a try. It's in part to raise awareness for a cause. I am a new board member for the Make-A-Wish Idaho organization, and I love what I'm doing for them, mostly because making dreams come true for kids that are struggling with cancer. I can't think of very many causes that matter more, not just to the child, but to the family who's going through the hard struggle of helping their child battle cancer or other long-term illnesses. So thank you for laughing along with me and following my story as I share it on social media under my Draper Stu account and my Startups with Stu account. You can find me I'll be talking about my stupid, and you can call it stupid if you want to. I understand. We're going to give it a try for a month, see if I like it. If I do, I keep it forever. If not, I go right back to Mr. Ball. And you, in turn, will know more about Make-A-Wish, which is my whole reason for doing this in the first place. So, without further ado, today with us, I have Mr. Akbar Jaffer. He is a professor of entrepreneurship and marketing at Grand Canyon University. He has been the part of 9 different startups, helping the founding teams at Inkemy, Snapfish, and ZorroSign, to name a few. He's going to be talking about the unfiltered reality of entrepreneurship. The like, hey, let's set expectations for what it's really like to be a founder. And he's done it. He's been an entrepreneur in residence for startups through the Arizona Commerce Authority, and he's an angel investor. He's helped other venture capitalist firms with their due diligence. And so with us today, please give us a warm welcome to Mr. Akbar Jaffer. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you, Akbar. So Akbar and I met because we were both working to help a founder with his mobile app company. And, in that founder's experience, he had a kind of a rude awakening to all of the different struggles that come from starting a business. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about those struggles. Akbar, tell us, from your experience, what are some of the hard struggles that you've seen in founder life?
Well, they range actually up and down the pendulum. So it's really taxing on family life, right? If you're single, it's a lot easier to be a founder, but if you have a family, it's really taxing. You have to have a very understanding spouse, and children if you have those as well. But professionally, I think depending on how far along you are in your professional life, everything that you've learned so far from age 4, you have to apply them to run your company. It's personal skills, it's social skills, interpersonal skills, it's professional skills, communication skills, it's analytical skills, it's the hard skills, it's the soft skills, you name it, everything you have to put into it. It's like the capstone of your life. And I think it's the best college you can ever go to. Best college you can ever go to. And
I could not agree more. Let me interject something with that thought. Hold yours, because I know you're going somewhere good here, but I gotta share this. Akbar, you just said college, it's the entrepreneurship is the best college you could attend. I cannot agree more. When I had a nephew of mine, he's like, Stu, I don't think college is for me. I think I'm just gonna get to work and learn as I go on the job, and maybe I'll start my own business. And he's like, by the way, like Steve Jobs didn't finish his degree. And I was like, well, he did go to college for a while and did learn a lot. And turns out he's very gifted and, had a really big opportunity. And that's why he quit, not because he just didn't want college. And then I said, but you know what? If you decide to not finish school, go start a business, because you will learn so much from that experience. And I said, let's say you take 4 years on the first one and it doesn't go, but it paid the bills. Great. You start a second one for 4 years and it doesn't work, but it paid the bills. And then you start a third one, and after 4 years, it's worth $5 million. You will be 12 years out of high school, and you will have more money than almost every doctor that ever worked. And that 12 years is when the doctor is just finishing college, and you'll already have finished building 3 businesses, 2 of which failed. It doesn't matter, right? So yeah, I had a good conversation with my nephew around that, and I thought, oh yeah, I could not.
It's true, but let me share with you the other side of the argument, which I'm a strong proponent of, right? Having gone to some of the best schools in the country, I think a 4-year college education really gives you the foundation. It also really expands your network, but it gives you the foundation and minimize your false stops, right? It really helps you avoid the potholes. Now, Michael Dell's and the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates of the whole of the world. Yes, they dropped out of college, but they all had a strong advisory board. They had coaches. They had people helping them. They had people who were doing the research for them and helping them, stuff like that. And having money to do that or not have money to do that really helps. But they they, they would not have been successful if they hadn't had a strong advisory board and people who helped them along, right? But what college allows you to do, and a name brand college allows you to do, is really minimize those 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 mistakes, right? Foundation stuff. Yes, you can learn all those stuff from just watching YouTube, stuff like that. But I think having a solid foundation in mathematics and science and to learn from your professors and stuff like that, it's really helpful.
Yes, most definitely. So, how do you go and find those coaches, those mentors?
That's a book that I can write about. Well, it really depends on where you are, right, in your professional career and who you are, your family, and your network within your church or school or your neighbor and stuff like that. Really, you have to look at who you have, your first degree network and your second degree network, and then you can usually ask. You can start with your mom and dad, and or your professors, and your friends' mom and dad, right? If they're professionals, or maybe they're business owners, and say, hey, who do you think would be a good person who can talk to me about this? And there's a whole science around it. You don't want to go up to somebody and say, I want you to be my mentor, because they're like, whoa, that's a huge, whole lot of commitment. No, right? But people love talking about them, and their experiences. And it's like a dating situation, right? You talk to somebody for a year or 6 months, and then you say, hey, you know what? I would love to, right? You have to be courteous, and thankful and stuff like that. And it's a give and take situation as well. So you have to find those connections. And I think networking is so important. If you have the means, go and pick up a book called Never Eat Alone. Buy it, and read it every 2 years and follow it. Networking is what makes the world go around. Networking is so powerful. And that's why I really like the classroom situation. I have had about 45, 50 students in every one of my entrepreneurship class for the last 3 years. And within the class, you have 50 students who are potentially your partners, customers, competitors. That's your network that you can practice and build your friendships around. And so network is really the way to go.
Yes, I think that networking gets easier when you have a good idea that smart people believe in. So, Akbar and I, we met because there was a founder that had a good idea, and I learned about that founder and his idea, and Akbar was somewhere else and learned about that founder and his idea, and in turn, we connected. And when you don't have a good idea, the smart people you share the idea with, they don't want to tell other people about your idea. But when you're onto something, they will pay attention. So be careful that you pay attention to whether people are willing to help you. If they're not, It's not that they don't like you, it's that they don't like your idea. It needs work. Go work on improving the product market fit and the size of opportunity, and all of a sudden smart people will want to be connected with you, and they'll want to help you connect with other smart people. So that's just my 2 cents on the networking side of, as it relates to your idea. And I think more importantly than worrying about that is worrying about, if you're 3 years away from a big idea, that right now you're caring about the network and who you know.
Yeah.
And that, like, so many of the people that ended up helping me with StuKent were people that I knew 5-10 years previously.
I have to tell you about the networking and the idea generation. LinkedIn is God's gift on earth to us. Use it well, use it responsibly, be courteous, be humble, and you'll be able to accomplish so much. I have to tell you my personal story. So when I was going through my business school, I used it as a ticket to just reach out to anybody. I've reached out to some of the powerful CEOs, large companies, public companies, really famous people. Just reached out to them and said, "Hey, I'm a business student that's so and so, and I'm working on this project. I would love to pick your brain for 15 minutes." Right. And then you follow up with thank you and a small gift, and people just love that approach. But use that opportunity and say, you know what, I'm starting a company, or I'm thinking about a company or a problem, and you seem to have some experience in this area. Would you be willing to give me 15 minutes? Right, I'll buy you a cup of coffee if you happen to be in the same neighborhood. So really helps out to reach out to people and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the
For sure.
thing
And
about networking. Yeah.
people that have had success more often than not are really willing and hoping that people will ask them for their advice, because they want to share it, but they're not going to openly go reach out to you to say, "Hey, can I help you?" That part's on you.
Right,
You've got to
exactly.
go and help them see that you need their help and that you value their time and help.
Right.
So,
Another thing about the ideas that you mentioned, Stu, one of the most underrated skill set as a marketer is market research. I talk to so many founders in a given month, and they pitch me some ideas, and they have great ideas, or they're thinking about something. It always occurs to me, or most of the time, and I think to myself, boy, if you had just spent 3 hours on Google and just find out, do you have a competition? What's going on? What's happening with the competition? Who else is working on it? And now with ChatGPT, we have no excuse, right? And so really understanding the lay of the land and your space that you're trying to get into, you got to understand it, because guess what? When you become a founder of that company, the investors want you to be the best subject matter expert in that space. They would expect you to have all the answers, right? In my entrepreneurship class, one of the exercises we do is 100 questions. You have an idea, you have a company, you have a product. I want you to make a list of 100 questions that people could ask you, and then try to find an answer to those. That's what it takes to be a founder. Because if you're standing in front of 6 investors or 10 investors, or giving a presentation, somebody will ask you a question, and you don't want to be stumped.
So let's talk about that. If you mentioned the investors,
Yes.
and getting stumped by investors,
Yep.
You've helped founders in the fundraising process.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen are the keys to success and things that have held founders back?
Oh boy, my favorite topic. There are a number of things. The few things that come to my mind are the deal breakers. Number one, like I said, if the founders have not done their research in their space or their product and stuff like that, Okay. Number two, do your research on the investors who are going to be in the room. You gotta do that. You gotta understand who they are, where have they invested in the past, what ticks them, what are their thesis, right? If it's a VC, and what are some of the things or some of the companies that have invested or they like to invest in, right? So you gotta understand. You gotta read the room, right? Is it a room of smart investors or just, dumb money? Okay. You gotta do your homework. What makes the founders successful in raising money are the people who are the numbers people. They understand the numbers. Number two, um, in the number side, they understand the money. How does the money come? How does the money grow? How does the money stay with the company? How do you make money? How do you spend money? Okay. You gotta be willing, when you go into a pitch meeting, you gotta prepare what I call the investor FUD response document, right? When you're selling, you have a FUD response document, but when you're pitching to an investor, you gotta have a FUD response document, FUD, um, and essentially you gotta anticipate all the blockers, the questions, and the challenges that they might raise, and you got to have answers to those.
FUD, by the way, stands for fear, uncertainty.
Fear, uncertainty, right? I'm sorry, I just thought that the audience knew. Sorry. Yes. So they will pose you challenges. You got to be able to answer all those questions, right? Why this? Why this? Why not you? And stuff like that. Another thing is you got to think like an investor. Why would they write you a check for $1, 100,000, a million? Why would they write you a check? What are they expecting from you? Yes, the return on investment. Everybody's that. What is it about them that wants to invest in it? What's their passion and what's going on? They also want to know that you will be a responsible person to manage their money, right? You can come in and say, listen, we're looking to raise about $1 million, but I don't want all your money up front. We just need 250,000 now. And essentially then every 6 months we'll have these milestones and then we wouldn't want more of your money. When you pose things like that to investors, they know they're a responsible operator of a business. Mm-hmm. Right? When you come in and say, we will have milestones against which we would want you to give us money to the fuel, the scalability of the company, right? Light the fire of sales. That's what we're looking to do, right? So those are the successes that I've, and there are some like mechanical stuff about the pitch, right? And Stu, you had asked me a question about a fun story. I'm sure that I'm jumping the gun on that one, but be prepared to just tell your story. Don't be mechanical about, here's a problem and here's a solution. Don't talk to the slides and stuff like that. Just make sure that you're having a conversation. I'll give you the fun story example. I was I was actually walking in with my founder. I was the coach, and she was about to pitch to a bunch of investors, and we had a deck ready, and we had practiced everything, and everything was great. And when we got there, it looked like that it was like a pitch day, right? So VCs usually do that. They have a bunch of investors, a number of founders come in, right? So they'll block the whole day for that. And it looked like it was that kind of a day. And so we were just in the lobby and, we're waiting. And so we heard one of the companies practicing their pitch on the corner. So we went there and we heard, we listened, and it just sounded like it could have been any company in the world. It was like, okay, here's a problem. Here's how we're solving it. Give us your money. It was so mechanical and so boring, right? So I looked over at my founder and I said, "Hey, Jennifer, you remember that story you told me about Michael and the operator, like stuff like that, and his wife was about to go into labor?" She said, "Yeah." And I told her, "Close the deck. Don't pitch the deck. Just start your pitch with that story, and tell the VCs that you don't have a deck to show them up front." She was like nervous. We got there, and that's what she did, and she just told a story about how a day in the life of. That's how she started the story, and half of the investors resonated with that story, and she ended up closing the deal.
In the day of the life of story, she was able to point out the pain.
Exactly. That's what it is, right? You walk and you're doing X number of things, whatever you are solving the problem. That's the power of storytelling is so compelling because it shows you a number of things. You know the problem you're solving. You're in love with your customers. You know your customers, and you know how to solve their problem.
Folks, if you haven't yet, take a second, go to startupswithstu.com and learn about my upcoming retreats. I have Rudy Rudiger coming. I'm so excited. Rudy is the guy that, if you've ever heard of the movie Rudy, it's a football movie, a story of an underdog, and founders, frankly, more often than not, you will find yourself as the underdog. Cannot wait for you to get to hear from Rudy. If you go to startupswithstu.com/retreats, you can learn more about the upcoming events and go and apply. Folks, this is an investment in time and money that's worth it. You will not regret having spent time in Island Park, Idaho with me, yours truly, Stuart Draper, Rudy Rudiger, and other founders and investors that will be there. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Let's get you back to the show now.
Keep everyone's attention with a good story. And I remember early days pitching my startup as an investment. And one time I went into it all about the market opportunity and the revenue opportunity and the return opportunity for this investor. And I hadn't done a good job of telling the story. And we got to the end and he wanted to change the subject and talk about how he didn't like one of the guys I was also pitching that I had name dropped, and it went nowhere. And I remember swearing to myself, like, I'm never starting with the returns up front and like what could happen with his investment.
Right.
Instead, I'm going to go and spend all of my time talking about how I came up with the idea, the story behind coming up with the idea, and the problems that professors have that I can solve, and the problems that the industry has because the professors have problems.
Right.
And like when I started with that, there was aha moments for these investors where they went, oh, cool, I can be a part of helping solve that problem. Yeah, that's a problem that I see and that I feel like definitely needs help. Right. So I really agree with you as it relates to storytelling. And then also I would just note, when you tell your founder's story to raise money, you're going to tell a variation of that story to your first customers, and they need to resonate with your story. And you got to never get tired of telling your story. You're going to say it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the crux of it, right? Because when you tell your story to your potential customers, if they just start nodding and smiling, you've got them. You're solving their pain, right? And customers don't buy technology. They buy a solution to their problem, right? And once that happens, right, so the power of storytelling. I have to tell you another story. I just have to tell you because it was such a unique pitching experience. So this is one of my own startups. It's called iMixtape. And so I stood in front of the investors and I essentially started my pitch No deck. I mean, I had a deck, but I did not use it. I essentially asked the question, how many of you remember making mixtapes? The entire room raised their hands. And I essentially went in and shared my experience of how I used to do it, and now I can't do it because music is digital, and right, and we have all these platforms and stuff like that. You know what happened? The next 15 minutes of my pitch, I did not even talk. All the investors were sharing their problems and their issues and how much they love making mixtapes and stuff like that. I didn't even talk. And at the end of the day, then somebody said, "Hey, we just realized you're trying to raise money." It's just like a power of storytelling, but your pitch has to be unique. It has to grab attention, and people have to recognize one thing only. You have a serious problem that you're trying to solve. You're the best person to solve the problem, and the market is big enough, and the market is willing to pay for it. You're done. That's it.
Yes, the proving that the market is willing to pay for it. How do you suggest founders go about that part?
I mean, there are a number of ways to do that. We do an exercise in my entrepreneurship class where we actually uh, build a minimal prototype, using uh, a PowerPoint, right? We show them a skin of an application or a product or whatever, and then we identify about 100 people, and we say, "Hey, what do you think of this product, or what do you think of this?" Right? And they'll give you feedback, and then the last question we ask, "Well, how much are you willing to pay for this?" And the least amount of money that you can spend, of course, your time, but you get a very uh, solid feedback from your potential customers. And then there was this one interview that I watched, and the founders were very skeptical about um, pricing their product high or higher, so they were actually leaving money on the table. And so one of the things that we do in my class is that um, the pricing, or how much you're willing to pay, we actually have a multiple choice question so that you can have the minimum, or if they want to go lower than the minimum or higher than the maximum. That gives you an understanding of how much money you're leaving on the table, or how much market share you will lose if you price it too high. So what that allows us to do now, this company or this consultant went in and they essentially, I think it was like 39 a month, and they raised it to 69 a month, and they realized that they did not lose any customers.
Wow, that's a massive.
And you realize that you literally doubled your top line revenue by doing that, right? Uh, and so you gotta be able to experiment, especially at a startup time. You gotta be able to experiment it. You gotta be able to readjust it. You gotta be able to give away. Um, but you have to do your market research again, right? We come back to market research. You gotta be able to do your market research and say what works, what doesn't work, what your competitors are charging, and for what are they charging that money, and how do you compare feature and capability by capability with your competitors.
Yeah, I think as it relates to proving out that people will pay for it, the best way is to actually go get some sales, right? In a course where you're working with a minimum viable product, or maybe minimal prototype that's not even a viable product yet, it's like that's what you described is going to work best. If you can get to a place where you can show that you've got first paying customers, it makes fundraising a lot easier. So in our case at StuKent, we had Brigham Young University's Marriott School of Management. It's a top 20 business school utilizing our simulation, and they used it for free. But in using it for free, they determined that they would be willing to pay for it the very next semester. And so I could go to investors and say, BYU is using it and paying for it. And I could go to customers and say, hey, University of Minnesota, BYU is using it and paying for it. And then University of Minnesota, they didn't get a pilot semester. They just started paying for it the very first semester. And the same for Oregon State University. They just started paying for it.
Right.
And it was all because I had a first buyer that proved there was value and others trusted it, and it created street credibility, and it really helped with fundraising a lot.
Absolutely. As a founder in the day of AI, as well as the auto coding and the no coding stuff, you can build a prototype in a matter of 2 hours. You can throw it up on your website. You can drive traffic to it. I think there was this one experiment done. There was no product. It was just the skin on the website, and there, right? There was this, like click to contact, and they, and this company, of course, it was highly regulated. So I'm not able to name the company, but they ended up with probably like 50 or 60 in a matter of a week. They had 60 people who were saying, "Hey, this is great. Where do I buy?" How much is it and where do I buy? It's just, you have to be creative, and you have to think, right? As a startup founder, you have to think $0 marketing. $0 marketing. You have to constantly think about that and see how much you can get done with nothing, almost.
Yes, I think that a big part of the problem for a lot of founders is they stop too soon. They just go to work and then it's not working and they stop. They don't keep going. And I think sorry.
Yeah. No, the reason why I took a deep breath is because I have a theory about that. And my theory is that when the founders are not in love with the problem, very simple. If the founders are not in love with the problem, and if they're not in love with the customer, that the flame goes out. But if you are in love with the problem and the customer, then, the road of entrepreneurship has a lot of broken glass, right on the road. And it's like, okay, like no shoes and upstream, like swimming upstream. And it's hard, right? 90% of it, it's hard. But so you have to find that motivation that keeps you going. The only way to get that motivation is that you're feeling the pain of your customer, and you are in love with the problem. That's the thing. You gotta be in love with the problem. The best founders that I have worked with experience the problem themselves. I have a founder of this wonderful startup company. So she's legally blind, about 99% blind. So she's developing a mobile app for blind people's mobility, using AI and using stuff like that. Talk about motivation. You know what I mean? This is the problem that's gonna help me.
Yeah, no, that's it's so important for someone like that to go get the people around them that can help them make their dream a reality.
Right. And talk about credibility, right?
Oh yeah.
Of course you have credibility because you're living, right? You are facing the problem every day, right? And I have this another founder. He started an artificial limb company. He's a war veteran, and he lost one of his legs. And he found that whatever solutions were out there were just not working. So he created one.
Yeah, that's I think for most founders, they see that they have a problem. They go, there's got to be a better way. And then when they don't find there's a better way, they go and create it.
Yep. That's the way to do it.
So let's switch gears here. Once people have the money raised,
yeah,
and they go to work to build their business. You've been a part of this stage too, lots of time.
Yep.
What have you seen are the reasons why it doesn't work out and the reasons why it takes off? What stories can you tell us,
Boris? Well, the reason why it doesn't work is not having a roadmap, not having the vision of how you will start to operate, not having the vision of scale, right? Because up until now it's been a pie in the sky, right? You've been dreaming about it, and you've speculated your numbers, your Samsung, right? Your TAMs and Samsums. You have speculated all that number with some research and stuff. Like, you have some idea, but there's a lot of speculation in your growth. But when you get the money in the bank and now it's time to spend, a lot of founders struggle. Where do I spend the money? What do I prioritize? Do I hire? Do I do this? Do I do that? Another thing that really hurts is that taking the bold risk, right? I'll just give you an example. There's a founder who thinks, I need to have money in order to hire my first SDR. And then I have another founder who says, I have a little bit of money. I will continue on my ramen noodle diet for another 6 months, by the way, but I'm going to hire 3 SDRs, and one of them will work out great and 2 of them will be okay. Or something like this. Or if I'm lucky, I'll have 3 SDRs who are producing like 5, 6 to 10 meetings a week, and I'm great. Right? They're building pipeline, and if I have a solution people want, I'll do demos all day long. It was right. So he ended up hiring 3 SDRs. 2 of them stuck around. One of them said, it's not my cup of tea, right? But then the other 2, 40, 50 phone calls a day, and they were doing demos at the end of the day, and that really worked out. So he spent the money, right? He spent the money, and he spent the money in the right place. Now, what I've seen succeed is people who trust and let go and start to take off. See, there's a time to be the founder-led sales, and there is time to let go and let the scale happen through the people that you have trusted to hire, right? I'll give you a very good example. A number of my clients that I have worked with, and they bring me on board once they raise the funds, because that's the time when I call, you got to put on a big boy pants, right? Essentially what happens, you got to have the right CRM system. You got to have the right marketing automation system. You got to have some repeatable processes. You got to think about scale. You got to start documenting the process, because the founders cannot hand over the sales process to an SDR they hired if they don't document their sales process. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard for founders to let go, because, right. But you got to trust on your positioning, your messaging, and your training and your content, right? You got to develop the content, your battle cards, your FUD responses. You gotta empower your salespeople and your marketing people to go and do that. Right. We kind of take over the whole marketing side for the startups, because they're like, okay, I don't want to hire, like 3 people and 5 agencies to do my marketing, and we still have skill gaps, right? So we kind of take care of all that stuff. But then the sales enablement part is very important. So what works is that you got to start building your foundation, right? You got to have you got to have a discipline of logging in your phone calls and taking notes about each and every customer, what happened, right? In a proper CRM system. It's time to let go of that spreadsheet. You know what I mean? Is the
CRM is client relationship management software.
Customer relationship software, right? Your HubSpots and your Zohos, right? Your Oracles of the world, all right? It's and you have marketing automation system, right? From Marketo to Bravo to to Pardot and Salesforce, you gotta start using those with discipline, because you're essentially saying that when I scale, I'm not going to be able to remember what's happening with each and every customer. I have I'm chasing 5 leads today. I know what's going on with them, but just remember, right? What happens when you have 2,000 4,000, 20,000 leads in the system. When you're doing email marketing, nurturing to 50,000. I have a customer that has 860,000 leads in their CRM database.
My goodness.
Right? How do you remember that? How do you scale that business? Right? So you gotta have, and I know that I'm harping on it, but I cannot tell you how many startups that I've gone into. The VCs are bleeding through their years of saying, I can't get my founder to do this or do that. And so the founders need to recognize the fact that these tools are empowering them to grow their business that like there's no tomorrow. And then once you have the data, then you can have the insights. How many customers are there? Just for example, like a small stuff, right? Well, when I set up a CRM system, you can, okay, so you're doing a trade show in Boston. How many customers I have with a Boston address? Let's fire off an email to every one of them. Hey, I'm going to be in Boston, right? You want to set up some time with me? Fantastic, right? How many leads do I have that haven't responded to my email in 6 months? How many leads that I have that have a score of 100 and higher? Well, looks like they are interested in my product.
Yeah.
All right. There's so much more that you can do. So the success happens. And lastly, you got to recognize the fact that you have skill gaps. And so don't be afraid to bring in a coach. Don't be afraid to bring in a mentor. Don't be afraid to tap into your advisors, right? You got to have the advisor panel for your company. You got to have your personal advisors as well. 3 or 4 people that you can trust and say, you know what, I'm struggling with my communication skills. What do you think I do?
Mm-hmm. So Akbar,
yes, sir.
We need to wrap up here shortly. I want to do 2 things in closing. One, I want you to tell people how they can get in touch with you if they would like your coaching or outsource CMO services, and then or angels investment. And then 2, I'd like you to talk about what's your criteria for what you like to invest in as an angel.
Yeah. So let's talk the first thing. So when I so my thesis for investing is actually borderline cliche, but it really works for me. So I look at what's the space that you're in and what's the problem that you're trying to solve. And I also look at who are the other players in that space from a competitor perspective, but also I look at who are the bigger players who see your solution as a component within their larger umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
I also look at, are you changing the world? Right? It's very important. Right. I invested in a company called Glass Dynamics. They're fundamentally changing what kind of windows and doors glass we use in our homes and buildings. Right. Fundamentally, so much so that the Department of Energy has been funding their research for 5 years now. Right.
Wow.
They're fundamentally changing the world. I also look at how well versed the founders are. Right. And how much knowledge they have of an industry. I also look at if it's a 1 founder company or a 5 founder company. I don't like 1 founder company and I don't like 5 founder companies. I think that 3 is a good number. Right. But with an exception, right? Because if it's a highly regulated company, yes, you're going to need 5 founders, right? Because they might have some like really good experiences as well. I also look for if the founders have a skin in the game themselves. So those are some of the criteria for me. It's very easy to find me. You can go on LinkedIn, and that's where I live most of my time. But you can also go onto my website, marketing-qa.com. So marketing-qa, the QA stands for qualityassurance.com. That's how you can find me.
Akbar, it's been a pleasure. Tons of knowledge shared here. so many things that a budding entrepreneur can learn from you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
One last time as we wrap up this episode of Startups with Stu, I hope that you've taken a second and gone to startupswithstu.com. If you haven't yet, go check out the website, make sure you're subscribed to the email, and make sure that you check out my retreats that are coming up. August 20th through the 22nd, September 8th through the 10th. We would absolutely love to have you guys there. You won't regret this experience. The testimonials are amazing. Go check those out and listen to those. In fact, I'll hit play on those next.
This is the best networking opportunity I've had this year. I would gladly pay whatever the cost it is to come year after year. Just with the people I've met, the motivation that it gives you, the skills that you take away, the connections that you get, you have lifelong friends here. Like the wealth of knowledge that I've been able to gain from very successful people in a wide variety of industries has been fundamental, I think, to my perception of what good business looks like.
I for sure have 2, 3, 4 people that will have a direct impact in my business and in my life right away. We just connected. It probably will leapfrog my business.
I came to Stu's Entrepreneur Retreat because I wanted to build a network that will help my business and help myself to grow. I gained connections that would not just last for a minute or a month, but for a lifetime. I came into this thinking, you know what, I'm not worthy to be here. And I left feeling like I was.
Being around guys that have broken past what they thought their ceiling was, and to be able to think bigger and really just go for it, right? And that for me was really transformational this weekend. To be able to kind of shift a mindset that I've needed to do and kind of clear the fog of where I need to go.
I've enjoyed getting to meet people and been able to elevate my thinking into trying to become a better version of myself. And that's really what this whole thing is about, is trying to get people to grow and become better versions of themselves so that they can help their community, their businesses, and their family.
The various speakers and the attendees have been very impactful in my life. The clarity that we've received up here and the inspiration to be not just a better businessman, but to be a better human being.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.